So some of you may know, if I can get a little personal and slightly graphic for a moment, I have diverticulosis. In my intestine, over here somewhere, there are little pockets, little diverticules. It's a perfectly common thing. It's a perfectly normal thing. I don't know what percentage of the population has it, but it's not unusual, and especially not unusual in men over 40. It's a sign that you're getting up there in age, that you've gone over the hill. Most of the time, it's not a problem. Most of the time, everything is still calm and works appropriately, and I could have, in fact, gone through my entire life not knowing about any of this. But some of the time, those little pockets, those little diverticules get inflamed. And nobody actually knows why they do or what to do about it. It just kind of happens. They can get inflamed and it's no big deal, just a little bit of discomfort. And when that happens, I eat kind of plain foods and drink a lot of fluids and give the system a rest, and it resolves. But they can also get inflamed and not be so mild. And it can be severe pain and a fever and can go very bad if left untreated. So way back in April, I had a little flare-up. I knew what it was. I had been through this before. I knew exactly the deal. What I needed to do was call my doctor and tell her what was happening, and she would write a prescription for amoxicillin, and that would take care of any infection that might be there, and I would be fine. I just needed to take like a day. So I called my doctor. And as usual, the receptionist told me that there was no way on earth I was going to talk to my doctor. I mean, I love my doctor. My doctor is great. She is very kind, has an excellent bedside manner during appointments. She's wonderful, but she's also incredibly busy and is always seeing other patients in other hospitals within the Mercy One Genesis system. I wasn't going to see her. So I said, how about the nurse practitioner? That is, after all, who I usually see when I'm going to go see the doctor. Well, the nurse practitioner was also very busy and had a lot going on and was overstretched. I could get in to see her maybe next week, which was not going to work. Because if this was left untreated and went bad, it was going to go very bad. So I went to urgent care because I needed care and it was somewhat urgent. It was not, and I'm going to tell you this now in a bit of foreshadowing, an emergency. I went to urgent care. I paid my $25. I went back into the room with, I think, another nurse practitioner, and I said, I have a diverticulitis flare-up, and I need antibiotics. Amoxicillin would be great. Here are my symptoms. Here is how it feels. Here is how I know that this is what it is. The nurse practitioner had me lay back and pushed on bits that maybe we shouldn't be pushing on at the moment. And I yelped. And the nurse practitioner told me, yes, it is definitely diverticulitis. You should definitely have some antibiotics. That is exactly the right course of action. But you need a CT. And we don't do imaging here at urgent care. Nothing that's urgent is so urgent that it needs imaging. So here's what I'm going to tell you to do. You go out, you get in your car, you drive over to the emergency room, you tell them what you told me, and they'll get you in for a CT, and then you can get your antibiotics. So I got in the car, and I went to the emergency room. And I went in and told them exactly the same thing, and met with the nurse who's like in charge of the emergency room. I'm going to point out, I did not see a doctor at any point during this. Met with the nurse, told him, here's what I have. Here is what's going on. Here's how I know that's what's going on, and I would really like some antibiotics. Amoxicillin would be great. That's what they gave me last time. Perfect. We'll get you in for a CT. We're also going to take all of your blood, run a bunch of tests. If you have to use the bathroom, it'd be great if we could get some of that too. Let's go nuts. Let's rule out all of the other things that you already know it's not. And so we did that. And I had a CT. And it was with contrast dye, and the contrast dye like spilled all over me. And it was just 3 hours of nonsense. And then I went back in the room with the nurse who was in charge of the ER. And he said, yeah, you're exactly right. It's diverticulitis. Here's how we know, having run every test we could run on every fluid in your body. Here is some amoxicillin. Also, here's some anti-nausea stuff in case you need it. Also, here's an opioid for the pain, which I was not looking for. I wasn't drug seeking, except in the sense that I wanted some antibiotics. But this process that I had hoped would be a call to my doctor and a trip to the pharmacy and a day of just kind of chilling turned into like 3 or 4 hours of nonsense and more drugs than I wanted and a day of chilling. And I was fine by the next day. I was okay to go back to doing all my normal stuff. So I ended up getting amoxicillin potassium cavolinate, which is a little thing that they add on so the amoxicillin works better. I think it was 875 milligrams for a course of like 10 days. That should have cost, come on, $20. But I had to do all the other stuff in order to get it. And that cost, with my insurance, $556. That's what I paid to multiple different groups of doctors and a radiologist who's like in Guam or something. And I have good insurance. Thank you very much, by the way, for paying for good insurance. If I did not have insurance, by which I mean if my insurance company charged me what they charged all of those healthcare providers, that would have cost $8,070. Despite the fact that what I knew I needed and what we confirmed that I needed was a $20 drug. It was bananas. And if I actually didn't have insurance, it would have been worse. Because, of course, all those health care providers have a deal with my insurance company that they'll charge them less and then charge me less. And it will all work out great. If I didn't have insurance, I'd be paying some unknown amount of money for all of those tests. Even with the insurance price, if I didn't have the insurance, I would probably have chanced it. $8,070 is a lot of money. Maybe this will just get better on its own. And there was a time in my life when I didn't have such good insurance, when $556 would have meant I would have chanced it. I would have said, maybe this will get better on its own. If it doesn't, well, I can't afford this any more than I can afford the ambulance ride and the hospital stay. and being woefully in debt that I will never pay back, after a certain point, the amount doesn't matter. So I am glad that I have this insurance. I just find it a little ridiculous that I could have paid $20 and been okay. In our story today, Jesus heals two people. And when I say heals on one of those, I mean brings back to life. The story within this that I love, though, that I find so fascinating, is Jesus in the crowd and the woman who has had a bleeding disorder for years and years and years. She has called her doctor. She is asked to talk to the nurse practitioner. She has gone to urgent care. She's gone to the emergency room. She is headed up to the Mayo Clinic to try to get help. She has spent every last dime she has. And because medicine then, and even dare I say it a little bit now, is part science and part wild guessing game, she is still suffering from this. And it is still putting her on the margins of society. There are ritual purity issues at play, of course, but there's also just the issues of being noticeably sick around people and what people do when they see someone who is noticeably sick. She carries both the disease that is in her body and the illness that is all around her, spread throughout society. And here is Jesus. She hasn't met him before. I don't know that anybody has preached the gospel to her before. I don't know that she was on the plain or on the mount where he gave a sermon. She has maybe just heard of this guy who maybe can heal her. He is, after all, on his way to the synagogue leader's house to heal the synagogue leader's daughter, and maybe even bring her back to life, depending on how long it takes for him to get there. So she creeps up, stealthily makes her way through this crowd that's pressing in, and just reaches out and touches his cloak. She has a light touch. She could be a pickpocket if she wanted to. He doesn't notice the touch. He's not saying, who's tugging at my cloak, who's pulling at my robe, who's trying to get at me. Instead, he just feels power go out of him and thinks, power just went out of me. Someone around here has been healed. She didn't ask. He doesn't know who she is. He hasn't seen her in the crowds. He has to ask, who touched me? Who took some of my power and got healed? Who's feeling better right now? And so she steps forward, says, I did. I touched you. I'm feeling better right now. Things have changed. I think I have been healed. And he doesn't ask questions. He doesn't give her a form to fill out. He doesn't set up a billing plan. He doesn't charge anything. He says, your faith has made you well. Go about your day, I guess. There is something so powerful in that, in the idea that her faith made her well. It's not as though before she touched him, she was getting better. It's not just that believing in Jesus, having faith in Jesus made her suddenly better. She had to do the thing, and power had to come out of him. But it is that idea, that that concept, that fact, that little thing of it was her faith. If I go to Jesus, he will help. That's what Jesus does. If I go to Christ, he will help. That is what he does. Even though I have nothing, even though I have no money, even though I have spent every last dime I have on buying a boat for every doctor in the region, even though I am on the margins of society and all alone and cannot pay a dime, he will help me. And I will finally be better. Jesus does almost the same thing a little bit later. He makes it to the house of the leader of the synagogue, and everybody's saying, "You're too late. She's died. We could have paid you. We could have made this worth your while, but there's nothing you can do now." And Jesus says, "Not so fast. She's just sleeping. Get up, little girl." And she does. And again, he doesn't have forms to fill out. He doesn't have a billing plan to set up. He doesn't charge anything. It's just who he is. Even death or apparent death cannot stop him from sharing the power that he has with anyone who needs it. Get up, little girl, and she does. Don't tell anyone. And for the love of the God who is love, get her something to eat. What if? What if we could adopt that spirit? What if we could make ourselves more Christ-like in that way? I know we can't do miracles. At least they're very difficult and exceedingly rare. But what if, when someone was sick, especially with something that they knew what it was and what they needed, it wasn't a matter of running around and spending hundreds or thousands or everythings. It was just a matter of saying, "Hey, I need care." And together we provided it. I know that sounds like a lot. I know that sounds hard. I know that sounds like something that only every other developed country in the world has started to figure out. But what if we could do that? What if, instead of waiting around for Jesus to show up and make a miracle, as much as I'd be glad for Jesus to show up and make a miracle, what if we learned, what if we decided, what if we had the faith to say, we are the body of Christ? We are the healing hands. We are the caring spirit. We are the ones who will show up and make sure that you get the care that you need. Maybe we could make our own miracle for those who need a miracle. A couple of weeks ago, I read an article that cited a study. Somebody had decided between the years of 2015 and 2018 to look into children's medical care. So the percentage of people who are enrolled in Medicaid or CHIP, the child health program, at some point before their 18th birthday. Put a number in your head. Guess what percentage that is. I almost guarantee it's higher than you think. 61% of children at some point are relying on those public sources of health care to get the care that they need. Come back. There you go. And so many of us, at some point, are relying on those public sources of health care to get the care that we need. I see my mom's Medicare payments. I see her estimations of benefits. I see the stuff that comes through. At some point, if we are lucky enough to live that long, we are all going to be relying on that public form of health care. And I know, I'm not supposed to get up here and get on a soapbox about health care, but what if we as a people could look at our neighbors who are sick and show them that we love them by providing that care for them? What if we as the body of Christ could lay healing hands on the people who need healing hands? What if everyone could reach out and just touch and feel better? I know that sounds like too much. I know that sounds too hard. I know that sounds too big. But what if? What if we, as the body of Christ, made a point of visiting those who are sick and offering the care that we can offer? What if we, as the body of Christ, made a sense of buying some medical debt and paying it off? What if we, as the body of Christ, did just a little bit to help just a few people, and then did just a little bit more to help just a few more people, and kept going? I believe in the miracles of Christ. And I believe that when we act as the church, when we act as the body of Christ, we too can do miracles. They might look different, they might feel different, they might be different. But through love of our neighbors, love of our sick neighbors, we can in fact change worlds. We can bring God's reign of love ever closer. We can help people stand up straight and say, in body or in spirit or in soul or in mind, I am healed. And they can go on their way. And what a wonderful, amazing, astonishing world that would be.